Hi, everyone, and welcome to The X, a podcast from inside Silicon Valley about how experience shapes everything, from products to businesses to entire industries. I'm Brian McLean, and I'm here with Demetrius Madrigal. Today, we're going to explore some interesting topics that have evolved over the last couple of weeks. But first, I wanted to make a statement. Right now, as we're recording this podcast, there's a lot of turmoil and things going on in Russia and Ukraine. And it's not something that Demetrius and I are experts in. And we thought about it, talking about it a little bit, and then we realized that probably the best thing to do would be to give everyone who listens to our podcast a chance to have a little bit of a break. So today we're just going to focus on talking tech. Good morning, Dee. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I think there's some interesting topics to cover today, and yeah, not to focus on negative things going on in the world too much.
Yeah. Question for you. There is some construction going on outside of my little mini studio here. Are you able to hear any of that?
Nope, I don't hear any of it.
Excellent. Okay. Sounds great. So here's the deal, and this is based on the first topic of today. I have an idea for your retirement, D. I think it's the best idea that I've ever come up with. So you are a super Disney fan. You love it. You have friends that work there, and you've always really enjoyed their experience and the experience they create for all of their guests. Well, guess what? The first topic of the day, Disney Story Living. Disney Story Living is this new proposed idea of Disney housing. It's something that Walt Disney, that you had explained to me and you and I had deep conversations about, that wanted to do in the 1960s with Epcot, and then they tried it again in the 1990s, and it didn't really work very well. But they're bringing it back, and basically what this is Disney is opening up a new living place where you can buy homes and live kind of in a Disney community, and they're going to have even a section of it that's for 55 and up,
Yep.
and it's based in Rancho Mirage, California. So if people are not familiar with it, it's actually near Palm Springs, which is a very big retirement area. There's a lot of things to do out there. A lot of people go there to golf and to play tennis and to hang out and enjoy the warm weather. And it looks like, based on what their announcement said, it looks like we're going to see a lot of development in the next couple of years, and it's actually going to include its own like personal lagoon and swimming area, and they're going to let the general public come for a fee every day, and it looks pretty amazing. And considering what Disney has done with their experiences, giving you these absolutely beautiful experiences both in the park, on their cruise ships, with Disney Plus and everything that they do, is this a UX dream, D? Is this it? Like, is this perfect for you?
Well, we'll see. I think it's a step. It's probably going to represent a step forward. So, just some historical context. In the 1960s, Walt Disney, his last major project was this Epcot, which Epcot actually stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. And Walt Disney died while it was being built, but his vision was for a community that was better planned in order to serve people, so that there wasn't, issues that especially that they were seeing at the time. Things like urban sprawl, lots of traffic, like difficulty getting access to services and commercial centers and getting back and forth to work and things like that. It's actually a really interesting concept, and I encourage everybody to go take a look at it and read up on what it is. It didn't work out, partially because Walt died, and they kind of recycled the Epcot kind of name and concept into the Epcot Park, and for the parks that were there in the Florida project. But it did seem as though his ideas ended up being influential in where housing development has gone since then. So there's plenty of communities out there that have kind of bridged the gap between what existed back then, which is just throw up a bunch of houses and sell them, to a lot of the more modern housing developments are designed with some kind of a commercial center involved. Like around here, we have Santana Row, for example.
Uh-huh.
And we've both been to Santana Row. We've been around that. We've done visiting people for research sessions and things like that, where you have a whole layer of commercial businesses, where it's stores and shops and restaurants. And then you have another layer of all residential. And if, somebody hasn't been to the Bay Area, or even if you've been to the Bay Area, if you've never been to like Santana Row's residential area, it actually looks like a village, like a cross between Palo Alto and like Cinque Terre in Italy or something like that, right? Where the houses are or Palermo, where the houses are all beautifully painted and it looks like a little village street going through.
Hmm.
And that is, I think, inspired by what Walt Disney had in mind, where, have commercial and residential being planned together to synergize. Dirty word, synergize. But I think
Isn't
because
that
that
just
is,
that's our favorite word in tech though, right? We love to do that. We like, what if we synergized these two things together? Let's have synergy.
well, I mean, it's an important concept as you're designing different kind of products within a product family, right? Like you want your different products to play well together and enhance each other, but it's become such a dirty buzzword now that it's kind of lost its original meaning. Uh, but so I thought it was interesting. There's a couple things here that I think are really smart moves. One of them is for them to target 55 and older, these kind of retirement communities you see popping up that are already kind of planned around some kind of experiential element within the community. So I've gone and visited my aunt. She owns a property in Manteca where it's a nice large house. It's nice and flat. There's not a lot of stairs for people who are older, and then the whole community is built around a lagoon. Sound familiar? And included in the lagoon are a bunch of activities. You can go there and play shuffleboard, or you can play. There's like little, I think like a 3-hole golf course and putting greens and like tennis courts and all kinds of things for the 55 and older who live in that area to go and get together and have activities and develop a level of community. I think that because that's already established within those demographics and people who are used to that concept, Disney stepping in and saying, we're going to step it up one level makes a lot of sense. People kind of expect it, and it can be something that will be both helpful to provide a new user experience for people and also influential for all the other developers out there who are going to look at this and copy it in the same way that people copy Apple and Google and so on.
Well, when Michael Eisner was CEO in the 90s, they tried this and it didn't really
Mm-hmm.
work out. And I think they had the best intentions, but they pushed this idea in the 90s in Florida at a residential development they called Celebration. But they had some issues. They tried to do affordable housing, and for some reason, it didn't really work out the way they wanted. They ended up with like 88% primarily white. And then as they started to continue down the progress of trying to keep the units open, they had issues with the developer, and then they had issues with large repairs that needed to keep things up over time. And I personally look at it as probably just a lesson, like a learning lesson of like
Sure.
how challenging it is. The reason why it's challenging is it's kind of a closed ecosystem, and in a closed ecosystem, you can kind of control everything. So the way they're building this new one, it almost looks like they're doing it the same way. The entire community is managed by Disney. The
Mm-hmm.
housing is basically created with architects with Disney. All the experiences are created by Disney. And then everything is kind of like wrapped into this one central experience. And if they do
Yep.
that and they staff it like they do at the parks, then they can keep it going forever and ever and ever.
I think there's a big difference here that number one, the industry is kind of caught up a little bit. So there are, different kind of light versions of this out there more than there were in the 90s. And the other thing is now Disney has decades of experience running kind of resort experiences at a deeper level, like things like the Aulani or even the Disney cruises. And all of their learnings from that should theoretically go into helping to smooth out some of the development aspects that the troubles are running into. The other thing is their choice of location for the first StoryLiving community in Rancho Mirage, California, which is quite close to the Imagineers up in the San Fernando Valley and to Disneyland and to the animation studios, allows a lot of the staff to get out there a little bit easier and to see what's going on and also to make sure that things are maintained. It's also an area where, because there's not a lot of snow or precipitation or anything, it could help them with maintenance and making sure that things aren't corroding because of humidity and things like that also.
Oh, absolutely. And also, one of the things I learned was that was one of Walt's favorite places to be. He actually lived
Yep.
there. He loved Palm Springs. So it kind of has some history to it. And also, I've been to Palm Springs before. I've been to Rancho Mirage. It's really pretty out there. It's got beautiful little mountains around it. It's really, really nice. So I can imagine, and also a lot of retirees want to live there. So
Yeah.
I had imagined that if you started with 55 and up, you
Hmm.
probably would sell those homes quite quickly. And also imagine like having your grandkids come to visit you, right? And you live in this planned community. The fact that it's run by Disney, it's like they're going to come in and have Disney experiences,
Yeah.
right? What kid doesn't want to like go visit grandma and papa when there's like these amazing Disney experiences happening at their house,
Yeah.
right? It seems like a total win if they can pull it off. But the thing is, and I heard this on another podcast. Someone made a really good point. People expect perfection from Disney.
They do.
So if it's not perfect and it's not perfect all the time, they'll let you know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can pull it off. It'll be interesting to see if they can pull it off for a profit, which these days, when it comes to real estate, you can accomplish that in multiple different ways. I'm wondering, number one, how ambitious they are with kind of the experiential elements. It does seem like the kind of thing where if you just go one step beyond the existing experiences that people have in these kind of communities, could be enough. But at the same time, Disney's a lot of times they just go for it. So we will see. One thing I think would be very smart for them to do that I'm going to keep an eye on and see if they actually do it is if they build a community like this for their own employees to live in. And for them
Mm.
to get a sense of, we call it dog fooding in the industry where you eat your own dog food, is for them to experience what works well and what doesn't work as well in their own life so that they can take those learnings into developing for these communities.
Yeah, people have talked about this for a while now, especially in Anaheim, where Disneyland is
Hmm.
located, is whether or not Disney should buy more land. Because I guess Walt said after he had purchased the initial plot of land in Anaheim that he wished he would have bought a lot more because
Hmm.
of expansion and things like that. And they've continued to buy, but they've also continued to cut into areas like, their outdoor parking and stuff like that in order to add new experiences. And I wonder if there is a plan to start purchasing land so they can build townhomes and condominiums and things like that for workers who either want to buy something and live near Disneyland. Because a lot of them
Hmm.
that work there, if you look at their badges, it's like been here 17 years, 14 years, 30 years, 50 years, right?
Yeah.
If you're committed to being near it and you also love being there, it makes such a great life experience, right? Especially if you can walk to work every day and stuff. I mean, I feel
Hmm.
like there's a benefit to it. I know that they try not to blend work and life too much, like city planners and stuff, because they don't want to make people feel like their whole life is all about working. But like you said with Santana Row, we're starting to see a lot of this condo and apartment building over the top of businesses and near businesses, where in
Yeah.
the past we didn't see that much at all, right?
Yeah, I think there it has been a trend towards making cities much more walkable, especially in the West Coast, where it hasn't always been the case. But I don't. I think one of the reasons why they maybe haven't done that yet is there's a big difference in cost between real estate in Anaheim or Central or San Fernando Valley than it is out in Rancho Mirage. So hopefully we can see something like this in the near future. And I have my good friend works for Disney, so if he were to actually go live there, I would absolutely go and check it out.
I know. I'm very curious though about how Disney balances, for a better choice of words, amazing versus cheesy, right? Meaning like
Hmm.
how you design a living experience where it's like a touch of Disney rather than like it's all up in your face all the time.
Hmm.
Like just making it more like this. So I'll give you a good example. When you walk down Main Street in Disneyland, you have
Hmm.
these beautiful storefront places that look really old and interesting, and they pump out the smell of like fresh ice cream and all that stuff. I'm all down with all that all the time. Like they want to they want to do that in these planned communities. I'm up for it. But I'm not sure that if I'm like living there and I have a home there and everything, if I necessarily want to see like, you know, characters all over the place all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like this balance between like having it classy versus having it a little too cheesy or a little bit too kiddish, especially when you're 55 and
Hmm.
over.
Yeah, I think that might be something that they will need to figure out. But yeah, you don't. One of the nice things about Main Street in Disneyland is it doesn't always feel super branded to me, as opposed to like Fantasyland, for example, is the complete opposite. That's probably like super super branded. Um, Something like that might be better, but a lot of Disney goes heavy on theme.
Uh-huh.
And while it might be cool to live in a community that is like sci-fi themed or safari themed or something like that, it can get old quickly, and people might want something a little bit more neutral.
Exactly, right. It's going to be really interesting. And actually, I think what we need to do is we need to do a tour and then do a podcast about it, like a dedicated episode, because I think if we drove to Palm Springs, stayed there for a little bit, and then did a
Hmm.
tour of the planned community and got to see some of the homes and the way they're building it and all that kind of stuff, I think it'd be great to do a UX inside scoop, because
Yeah,
this is all user experience. I mean, they are
yeah.
basically getting Imagineers to craft the perfect living experience. And one of the side notes I was going to tell you before we go on to the next topic was I saw this really cool old video of Walt talking about how he invented this new way to like transport traffic in Epcot,
Hmm.
and he thought it would be the future for cities, and it was so cool. It was like all the trash goes underneath the city through
Yep.
pipes, remember, and
Hmm.
all that stuff. And I loved it because it was the idea that like a great user experience is not seeing large garbage cans filled with trash in front of homes or in front of businesses all day long. It's about having
Hmm.
clean, beautiful streets where people feel motivated and positive.
Yeah.
And I
Can you
feel like
imagine?
that's what's going to happen there. I can tell you that right now. It's going to be something like that where you look around and you go, man, this is the cleanest and most beautiful planned area that I can imagine. So I'm kind of pro on it. I'm excited about it. I can't wait
Yeah.
to see it. I know that they struggled in the past, but with trying to do this, but this is a new time. It's 2022, and I think it's time to try again.
Yeah. Can you imagine an experience where instead of filling up your garbage cans and rolling them out to the street or tossing them in a dumpster, you put your waste into a chute and it goes into an underground corridor, kind of like we do with a sewer, and it just gets collected and removed from there. Never
Yeah.
have to deal with it.
It's a great idea. Well, hey, let's move on to our second topic here. So last week, Donald Trump's Truth Social launched. It's the social app, which is a conservative app. I kind of deep sigh on that one because it's just interesting. It's like between Twitter and now Truth Social, it's like everyone's pulling to their corners, and it's just the time we're living in. But anyways, when the app launched, it quickly rose to the top of the downloads of the App Store, which makes sense because a lot of people wanted to try it out. Basically, it's kind of a visual copy of Twitter. So if you look
Hmm.
at it, they've kind of changed the blue check marks to red check marks, and they claim no censorship, but have already banned users. Such as one of the examples I saw was Devin Nunez cow,
Hmm.
which was this kind of like comedy meme about Devin Nunez, but before it even got started, before they could even create the account, um, it got tossed out. And I know that you had mentioned the terms of service on them have a laundry list of forbidden content, so it could theoretically end up even more restrictive than Twitter itself, right?
In some ways, for sure, I think so. I think the big thing here is that the liability aspects and a lot of the legal aspects are not probably going to be very different from Twitter. There are going to be some things that they're going to be more lenient toward, but I wonder if those things are the same kind of things that became an issue for Parler, and that could result in just kind of being deplatformed from like the App Store and the Play Store. So then they have to figure out distribution, and then also losing infrastructure like AWS and Cloudflare. And you imagine if this system, this Truth Social, loses DDoS protection from Cloudflare, it's such a target. I can't imagine them staying up.
Yeah, the thing is that like the company itself doesn't seem to be run by like tech entrepreneurs that have a long history of building companies, selling companies, running big companies, or anything like that. And I don't know because it seems to be very secretive about how the platform is actually built and like how it's running and onboarding and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure. They did have problems when they launched. A lot of people couldn't log in, security issues, things like that. To be fair, I mean, like every platform tends to have trouble when it scales really quickly when it first starts out. Um, but we'll kind of see how it unfolds. The thing that bothers me about all these social platforms is the fact that we're at the point now where just there's going to be a ton of them, and they're all just going to be separated based on people's beliefs. It's like you never really mix anyone anymore. It's like one of them is more liberal, one of them's more conservative, one of them's more whatever. And it's like, I guess that's fine if you want to stay within your bubble, if you just want to go into one app and only be around people that are just like you. But I think the original goal on a lot of these was to try to get people to communicate outside of their comfort zone a little bit and meet new people and stuff. But I think we've proven through humanity and through just the experiences of Twitter over the last decade that it's terribly difficult to do that.
I've lost faith in the idea of getting people to communicate cross bubble through a social network platform. I think what that ends up doing, or what we have seen that end up doing, is kind of distorting who the people's personalities are, so that you end up with their worst versions of themselves when they're communicating. I don't think you need a social network platform to understand the perspective of somebody who is on a different political bent from you. I think there's plenty of other sources to do that. And for engaging with people directly so that you can kind of understand them as people, I don't know that social networks are the place to do it. I think there might be some better way to do that. Just get people together in person and have them talk it out and speak to them face to face, so that it doesn't quickly degenerate into just name callings, distortions of other people's platforms, and they can actually connect with somebody and really process that this is another human being.
I agree with you 100%. And also, it's much harder to say something, disparaging or rude or disrespectful to somebody to their face, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. A while ago, I have an interesting experience. So a while ago, I was watching a show where it was really cool. I think it was, I'm trying to remember if it was on Hulu or something, but basically they take somebody who's completely the opposite of someone else and they make them go live with them for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a super,
Those wipe swap shows.
no, it wasn't a wife swap, but it was a very conservative man from the Midwest who, really has been, sheltered, for a better choice of words, just because lived in their bubble. And they had him move to San Francisco and live with a gay couple in the
Mm-hmm.
Castro.
I heard about this one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was so touching. It was amazing. He came in with all these defenses up, and he wasn't rude or anything. He just didn't understand their life choices and why they are the way they are. By the end, they were in tears, best friends, loved each other. This gay couple and this man. They went out, they partied, they had so much fun together. They became best friends, and it makes you realize that we feel like things are very different with one another, but then when we actually go and meet with somebody and you spend time with them and you get to know them and you hear their life experiences and all the hard shit that they've dealt with, just as some of the hard stuff that maybe you have dealt with, you start to
Mm-hmm.
realize that we're all pretty similar. And that
Yeah.
if you just opened up a little bit and realized that everyone has a different life, but they're not any better or worse than you can really make a lot of wonderful friends in this world. And so these platforms always make me kind of go like, ugh, because I feel like it's more of a dividing platform. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
just Truth Social. I'm talking about Twitter itself. Like you go on Twitter and some things are great and some things are just horrible. And you're like, is this really the direction we want to go? Like, is this how we want to live our lives? Right? Because you watch another example. You just watch kids play in the playground when they're young. Like it's beautiful. It's like every type of kid plays with every other type of kid and nobody judges one another. That stuff doesn't begin until later.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see that. And if we did that as adults, might have a much better experience in life.
Yeah. And I think that there's something wrong with having a an a platform where people who might be of a conservative bent or a liberal bent. I hate using the conservative bent now to define Republicans, because they've so abandoned fiscal conservatism.
They have
But
pretty much abandoned it completely. If you actually just look at the way that
yeah,
things are going in that direction, for sure.
yeah, they're growing government and they're spending a lot more. And like you look at their spending, and it's so much higher than when Democrats are in office these days. But if there was an area for them to get together and talk about, small government and and tax policy and things like that, there's nothing wrong with that. Where I think platforms like this run into trouble is when they start becoming kind of this Alex Jones experience where they just, they start off with these the lizard people, pizza parlor pedophilia ring stuff that it's just like it very much is the new tabloids,
Yeah.
and the way that people are engaging with them is just way overblown.
Yeah.
And part of that is because the experience around an interactive medium like a social media website is very different than just reading some supermarket tabloid. So people,
Sure.
it can ingrain itself at a deeper level, like in a more compelling level. And I think if they get into that area, then this can very, very easily go down in flames, which I have no love lost for Trump, so that's not going to make me upset. One of the things that I don't think that either the Truth Social team or people outside of the tech industry really grasp is just how technically challenging it is to run something like this at the scale that Twitter does, for example. Like, it is tremendously challenging once you get up into the millions just to keep things running and not crashing or running into bugs. And then also you have to handle all the other things about how people are interacting with each other. I don't know if a company like this, who has someone like Devin Nunes as its CEO, who as far as I can tell, has never had a job outside of being, an elected official, could actually do this, especially if they start getting deplatformed and they can't. You could do this without AWS and Cloudflare. You could run your own servers. You can handle your own security, but it's so much tremendously more difficult to do that. I don't know if they can, that a company like this can pull this off. And even without that, I don't know if technically it can keep going.
Yeah, it's really, really challenging. And this isn't just for fun for a couple of years, right? Normally, when you start these companies, you're looking to keep this platform going forever, and if you look at all the ups and downs that Twitter has dealt with over the last, I don't know, when did they start? Like 2004 or something, right? It's been a journey. So I don't know, only time will tell, but I'm sure we'll hear more in the next couple of months on how things go. But the main thing is they just have to keep it up. They have to
Yeah,
keep it up and running, and they have to allow people in, and they have to deal with the technical issues and the hacking and the everything. It is a huge endeavor. And Silicon Valley people are just good at it because that's what they do 12 hours a day, every day, and been doing it for a long time. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Our final topic of the day, D, is one that I think you're going to be super stoked about. So Target's curbside pickup is growing, and there's a reason why
yes.
I'm talking about it today. I love it. I use it all the time. It
Hmm.
was so successful that it grew by 60% last quarter. Now, part of that might be because of COVID, but surveys have shown that people really enjoy this service. But
Hmm.
guess what they're going to start doing in the fall? They're going to start testing it in the fall at select stores. Delivery of Starbucks coffee to your car with your order. So when you go on there and you pick all the things that you want to have put in your bag and delivered in the back of your car, you can also select the type of coffee you want, and they'll bring it right out to your window and deliver it to you.
That's
Here's why
awesome.
that's super awesome and super interesting. A lot of Targets actually have a Starbucks inside of them. And by placing the order, it can literally split the order, send it to the Starbucks counter, and they just literally walk by and just grab the one with your name on it. I mean, as simple as that. So I think this is going to be huge. I think you're going to see coffee flowing out of Starbucks and Target on a regular basis. The other thing that they're going to do is they're going to start allowing returns from the car, which is
Oh, that's
super cool.
fantastic.
Yeah. So if you have a couple things that need to be returned, you just leave them in the back of your car. They come out, they grab them, they scan them, and walk away. That's it. I mean, the reason why I brought this one up was not just because you and I are super fans of curbside pickup, but because I had this question. When you think about the different types of experiences that you can have, okay, so you can walk into a store, grab a cart, and go shopping, right? You could get curbside pickup in your car, where you don't even have to get out of your car and they just put it in your trunk. You can order something online and then it'll get delivered to your house, but you have to pay shipping potentially or wait an extended period of time. Did they just totally nail the sweet spot right in the middle?
Well, I think so. I think to a certain extent, one of the biggest pain points, at least for me, when it comes to any form of shopping, is just navigating the store and finding what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it comes to like grocery shopping, for example, it's almost like an acquired skill. Like I've been going to the same couple of
Yes,
grocery
it is.
stores for so long. I know exactly where everything is. It's almost like I'm an employee there and I figured things out. And, with a partner who's a chef, I have to know all these things. I have to know which store is going to carry, dragon fruit, and what store is going to carry, other unique ingredients, and so that I can plan out what stores I need to go to in order to get the things that we need to get. Now, same thing happens with larger stores. It gets worse when you get into larger stores, and Home Depot's helped out with they have their own curbside pickup, but they also have their app will tell you what location is, or an item is within the store. Like IKEA, it'll tell you this is in row X and bin Y, right? So this evolution of that, where it just takes the friction out of shopping, so you have somebody who knows the store, who knows the where everything is just it saves you the delivery fees of having it sent to your house for like an Instacart kind of thing, and it gets you out of the house, and but it also keeps you efficient, so you can go take care of the stores that you need to just take care of very tactically, very quickly, and then
Yeah.
you can spend more time on other experiences that you might enjoy a little bit more. For returns, if this is anything like the way that Amazon handles returns nowadays with Whole Foods, where you handle all of the actual return stuff on a website or an app, and then you show up and they just scan the item and you're done. That is perfect, and it's a massive step forward in how returns can be handled.
Well, I was thinking about shopping flow for when you said that, because you said like, oh, it'll be more efficient. And I thought about it, and it's like, if this can be the beginning of most of the stores offering a similar experience. Now I know there's curbside pickup at some popular stores, but not all of them.
Hmm.
Then you can almost map out all the different places you need to stop and pick your stuff up before you leave. Like set, okay, I'll be here at this time, I'm leaving from the store at this time. And you just keep basically bouncing from store to store and picking stuff up. It can really cut down the amount of time for shopping, like on the
Yeah.
weekends when you need to get things, and busy parents, or busy people in general, right? And then I thought about returns too, and it's like, oh, that return line is horrible. Like where you walk into a store and you got to stand in
Oh yeah.
line for 20 minutes because the line's out the door and a bunch of stuff needs to be returned. I'd rather sit in my car and listen to music and hang out and have it picked up. Also, another thing that doesn't get discussed. So I worked at Target, actually. I don't know if I think I told you that, right? So I worked there
Yeah.
for 3 months when I was 16 years old, and I ended up having to work at the register, and then I did a little bit of stocking and stuff. If I worked at Target right now, that's the job I would want. You would get like so much exercise. All you're doing is bouncing around the store, picking stuff up, dropping stuff off in people's cars, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Probably can just listen to music the whole time. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And you don't really have to like, stand at the register and check people out and that kind of stuff if you're not that type of person. You don't want to like socialize all day long.
Hmm.
Um, and you can still get exercise. I mean, everyone who works in that job right now gets at least 20,000 steps a day. They do, right?
Yeah.
And that's great. That's awesome. That's like an added benefit to it, because like you and I talked about this. There's a lot of different jobs that have emerged for younger people that we didn't have when we were in high school and college,
Hmm.
and this is one of those ones that could be pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I worked in retail too, and in college and high school and things. And one of the most I spent so much time just telling people where things were or guiding them. I mean, a lot of times if somebody asks you, you're supposed to guide them and show them where it is and those kinds of things. And it's what's disruptive to other things that you're trying to accomplish. And it's also just not a great experience for the user, right? They have to approach somebody who might be busy, and then they're going to walk them to where it is. They're kind of admitting to like some ignorance on some level, which is never pleasant, right? You never want to put somebody in a situation where like I need help because I can't do it on my own. Just removes all that, and now the person who's doing it is someone who knows the store, who's very efficient, is getting plenty of exercise walking around. Like one of the worst things you can do for yourself if you're on your feet all day is just stand in one spot. So it's all win. I can't see too much of a downside in any way from this.
Yeah, me either. Just curious, as someone who lives with a chef, do you think she would ever get to a comfort zone where she would let someone else pick out like vegetables and meats and things like that without her looking at it?
If it's me, yes. But actually, she has kind of bought
Oh,
into
meaning if you went and picked it out. But what I'm
yes.
saying is like, would do you think she would ever feel comfortable with like, I don't know, a random person picking it out or some sort of like AI system scanning her apples for her?
Actually, the pandemic, I think, has actually converted her to some level. She does a lot of online grocery shopping nowadays,
Oh wow.
which
Okay.
is helpful because for her to go to the grocery store is like a 2 hour kind of endeavor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember she was telling me about how you guys ventured out, or no, you took her out to go see the San Jose flea market's
Oh yeah,
produce area, right? It's huge. It's amazing. It's gorgeous. Like it has so much stuff. And she said it was like going to Disneyland for the day, right? It's like fruits and vegetables that you don't find anywhere else. And she said it was absolutely phenomenal.
yeah. If anybody out there is in the Bay Area and hasn't been to the San Jose flea markets kind of farmers market area, it is unbelievable. You will go there. I mean, she's a chef, and I grew up, with Mexican Filipino parents, and I go there, and I'm just like the entire time I'm just asking, what is that over and over again in Spanish because there's so much produce I don't even recognize. I feel like I've never seen in my life, and Christine's the same way. She's been to Mexico tons of times. There's so many like just different produce that you've never seen before. It's amazing. Now, if that was something that you could also kind of automate, number one, that is it with the curbside pickup, kind of wrapping it back together. That means that you can spend more time in a place like that because you're spending less time at Target, uh,
Exactly.
shopping, looking through things through the aisles. You're spending more time in the places you want to be, which is some people will say like, oh, this means that people aren't going to be out and interacting with each other. And maybe it is. But what we tend to see is that when effort is taken away from one thing, people have a certain amount of effort that they want to put out, right? They'll feel too lazy otherwise. We've seen this from like Betty Crocker historical studies and stuff like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
They don't be People are not inherently lazy on some level. They will tend to put out the same amount of effort. They'll just shift where that effort goes. So that means that they'll spend more time in the stores that they enjoy being in, and less time in the stores where it's much more like commoditized tactical stuff where you're just trying to get in and out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you can only spend 15 minutes pulling up and having your stuff tossed in from Target for, cleaning supplies or whatever it is that you need for the house, but then you could spend 2 hours at the San Jose fresh produce area at the flea market and really explore things and have some fun and maybe even have lunch there. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you just basically gave the consumer back their time. You're almost
Yeah,
like that. I mean, that's essentially what curbside pickup is. It's convenience, but it's also trying to give people back their time, which
yeah.
is really cool concept.
Yeah, and if for anybody, I probably forget this a lot to tell people when they ask me about coming to Silicon Valley. If you come to Silicon Valley to visit, go visit the Berryessa Flea Market. They actually have food trucks there now. They've stepped up their actually their kind of food service game. Also, it is a unique experience you're not going to find much of anywhere else. Now you start wrapping in some curbside service options there, and that means not just the convenience of getting these things, which sometimes I just don't go to the flea market because it is a bit of effort going there, parking, walking in because it's a bit of a walk to get from one place to the other. So there's a time commitment to it. Um, Now you also have much more education around like what is this unusual squash that's coming from Mexico or coming from South America or something like that, so you can learn just much more about what the things are.
Absolutely. I think that's a great place to wrap up today with that recommendation. So thanks to everyone so much for taking the time to listen to us today. We really do appreciate it. We'll be posting links to many of our sources that we referenced on Twitter. So you can find us and follow us at the X Podcast One. That's the X Podcast number one. If you like this podcast, found it interesting or informative, it helps us a great deal if you subscribe, leave a review, tell a friend, spread the word. We love hearing from everyone. So thanks again, everyone, and we will see you all next week.